challenges. Randy Cox, the now retired director of Texas Speech, has shared with us a really lovely video that helps us document the success and the history of Texas Speech. And so we very much want you to be able to see and hear that. So we're working on that, and while we're doing that, we're gonna go ahead and proceed with the remainder of our program. Now, that laptop that doesn't want to play any audio also has my slides, so I can't give you the names of our panelists on the screen right at the moment, so I'll introduce everybody individually. Obviously, we have our chair, Craig Scott, Madeline Maxwell, and Rod Hart, and we're going to be hearing from each of them in an order to be determined based on what happens, I think, with the audio. I do know, though, Madeline, we're going to move you up to, you get to bat leadoff now. Everything filters through baseball for me. So we're going to get an opportunity here to learn a little bit about some of the initiatives in the Department of Communications. I knew it. I predicted that would happen. Yeah. That's progress. That's very promising. So we're going to learn about some different initiatives in the department's history, and then also some of the things happening now with an eye toward what we imagine will be happening in the future. Does the future hold the possibility of audio? Oh, are we good? Okay. All right, so I'm sorry, you're back to the number 2 spot in the lineup. Historically, the best pure hitter on the team does bat second. So yeah, there we go. All right, so we're in good shape. So thank you for your patience with that, and thank you for the wherever he went. Thank you for the technical help. Yes, appreciate that. So our first order of business then is going to be to hear from Randy, who unfortunately cannot be here in person today, but he's going to give us a great background on Texas Speech and their incredible run of success.
The Department of Communication Studies actually traces its origins back to 1883, when the faculty charted a literary society for the express purpose of fostering debating and oratorical activities. That society, which was one of the oldest organizations on the UT campus, was named the Athenaeum Literary Society, and was created with the express goal of training and developing its members in forensics. Founded originally as an all-male society, the Athenaeum was joined in 1888 by the Ashbel Literary Society for women, and other women's societies followed, including the Sidney Lanier Group, the Reagan Group, the Piran Society. 2 men's societies also emerged called the Hogg Debating Club and the Rusk Literary Society, and those were primarily geared toward public speaking. In 1941, a women's speech organization was founded, and that one was called Forensica. The first national organization joined by the University of Texas was called the Delta Sigma Rho Honorary Society. That was founded in 1906 at the University of Iowa. Joining DSR in 1909, along with Harvard, Yale, Iowa State, and Missouri, Texas was one of the oldest chapters of that organization and was the first chapter from the state of Texas. And that Texas chapter submitted annual reports to DSR describing the various forensic activities all up until the 1960s. And these were all published in the DSR's national publication, which was called The Gavel. Speech and debate activities were organized by many of these varied organizations until being brought together under an umbrella called the Texas Forensic Council, advised by Thomas A. Rusi. This later became the Texas Forensic Union. Until the early 1980s, speech and debate activities operated out of the same administrative leadership. But as the contests for speech and debate began to diverge, All of that had to change. The program was split into two separate organizations. In 1988, under then Department of Speech Communication Chair Kathleen Hall Jamieson, the two separate teams were created to operate under the guidance of graduate students until the creation of faculty positions in 1993 that formally instituted the Texas Speech and the Texas Debate teams. Since that time, the speech team has become one of the premier programs in the country, winning over 100 individual national championships and 10 overall national team titles for the American Forensic Association. That team has also been twice awarded the National Forensic Association cumulative national title called the Founders Award. And along with the debate program, the University of Texas at Austin has been recognized 24 times as the American Forensic Association top overall program in speech and debate. Not many people are aware that the Department of Speech, as it was then called, was also instrumental in the creation of the University Interscholastic League, or UIL, which has fostered the state's academic and athletic contests in virtually every public high school in the state. In fact, the UIL was established in 1913 as a continuation of the Debating League of Texas High Schools, which had been founded by Texas Speech and Debate in 1909. The powers that were in charge at the time figured if there could be state-level contests in speech and debate, then there could be state-level contests in football, baseball, choir, theater, and everything else. Still housed at the University of Texas, the UIL is one of the most significant organizations of its kind anywhere in the United States. Over the years, the Department of Communication Studies has remained heavily involved with high school programming, offering summer workshops. Here is a flyer from 1962 that was saved by my mother-in-law. And in 1994, UT established what has become one of the most popular comprehensive summer institutes in the U.S., bringing in some of the most talented instructors from across the country to convene in Austin each summer. And every year since 1998, UT speech and debate programs have combined to host one of the largest national invitational contests for high school students. On average, over 1,300 students come from across the country to visit UT Austin, making it one of the biggest recruiting efforts on the campus. The forensics programs have been a center point for bringing students from all majors to the Moody College of Communication and the Department of Communication Studies, allowing us to work with the best and brightest students on our campus. And once they get involved, they go on to do some pretty amazing things. Partners at major law firms, founders of documentary film companies, who also happen to be multiple Emmy Award winners. Writers for both stage and screen, professors who changed the way we think about law. Law review editors who form national coalitions. Actors who get showcased in American Theater magazine. Elected officials who make the decisions about our rights and our responsibilities, even right here in Austin. And of course, educators who come back to teach and return the favor of opportunity. But as I now near the end of my own tenure with the Department of Communication Studies and hand the torch off to younger, innovative, and inspiring minds, I can't help but look back at the history of both this program and the Department of Communication Studies, and I have to wonder, what will the next 125 years bring?
Wonderful to hear from Randy, from the legacy of that program. I want to echo just one thing, mentioning the number of students who come from outside the discipline to come to speech. That is how I found myself in communication studies. I have a degree in political science as an undergraduate student, but my competition experience in speech is what brought me to communication. And I know that we have so many speech and debate competitors in our field across the board. So very great opportunity to hear about that program. We're also going to hear now about a program in peace and conflict resolution, which is one of the earlier, I don't know if it counts as an institute program center or just the awesomeness of Madeline Maxwell. So we're going to turn it over to Madeline to hear about peace and conflict resolution.
Oh. Hello, yes, the awesomeness of me. I'm going to talk about a much smaller program than the other folks were talking about. And I'm going to tell you that it was a program that became something very different from what I initially had in mind. I wanted to do research on misunderstandings. I had been doing stuff on intercultural communication and deaf hearing communication, and I wanted communication that also kind of was hard, but not because of something external, but because of something internal. But it's really hard to do research on misunderstandings. The laboratory research seems so phony to me. That's not how misunderstandings happen. And then I was on an airplane going to Chicago to an education conference that John Daly told me I would love. I don't remember why now. Yeah, you told me I would love this conference. So I submitted a paper and I went to this conference, and I ended up sitting next to a woman who was involved in Austin in the origination of the county's nonprofit organization, the Dispute Resolution Center. And as she talked, I thought, these people have such bad misunderstandings, they've got to go find a mediator and work something out. I can get my data there, okay? So, well, forget that. I actually ended up being president of the board of that organization for a while and volunteering for them, doing hundreds of hours of volunteer work. And I never could convince them that they should allow any kind of research to take place. So I thought, well, this is the data I want. The people are willing to say yes, because I would often just casually ask them. I thought, I can do this. So I thought, well, I'm going to start one at the university and figure out some way to work it out so that I can legitimately collect data. Little did I know that that would take over the rest of my career. So I first invented a class to teach people how to do the mediating, okay? And that turned out to be the most fun teaching I ever got to do. It was just every communication idea they ever read about or heard a professor talk about, we did. A couple people here that took that class, and so I thought, this is great, because it's like it really is a practicum, not a practicum over there that's kind of like it, but they are really working on communication. But then we had to get clients. So we found unhappy university students who wanted to be our clients. The university attorney won't sue another student for you. They only help the students sue outsiders. So the university's attorney would send us a lot of the problems that were between the students. And so then the students in the class, as part of the class, mediated not just stuff between themselves, but real cases. So for years, every student that took that class got to mediate at least one real case, and they got enough hours to fit professional certification. So I was not just teaching a class, I was running a whole university program, because I couldn't exactly say, we don't need you, take your problem somewhere else. So we just took all the problems, and at least some students would always want to do extra work. So we were doing that. And then we ended up doing sort of after work with people who had been through judicial services. So they've gone through judicial services. I don't know if any of you were lucky enough to go through judicial services, but they've been sanctioned in some way. And the policy was, at least then, they never got to confront the other individual. Just somebody handed down a decision that they had to follow through. So we, as a follow-up, sent to us from judicial services, my students would meet with them to see if there was any kind of reconciliation, resolution of that kind. Then we needed facilitation skills, so I ended up adding that, and every semester we put on a public program of some controversial subject, so my students would have the opportunity to facilitate this difficult topic. And we'd get students from all over, and we got the various police and sheriff's people in town to come to one. We got all kinds of policymakers to come to others. When the university changed to this big 4-year graduation push, the guy running that couldn't get students to answer his surveys or come in. So we had a forum, and he came, and that's what he used as evidence, passing on to this woman who was hired to sort of channel it through. So we actually had some consequences, not only interpersonal, but also, policy-wise. I also took the students with me, and we did tons of workshops in the community that we got paid for. And then we started a summer program for high school kids to figure out how to take these ideas and sort of present them in a way that worked with teenagers. And the college students got to work in that. So all of a sudden, I have this huge little institute that I'm running on a shoestring, and added classes so that we ended up with like 3 and 4 classes that they could take in the subject. The only thing I forgot to do was earn enough money to make it an actual center, which I kept being told more and more $1 million every time we seemed to get any close to being able to do that. But in the course of all of that, we ended up developing a relationship with Willie Nelson, where he gave us a song that we used in the camp and used with all of the things that we did. He never came to campus, but he invited us all the time to his place. So this was my little, field trip for the students, was we would go out to the what do you call it, the fake town, the western town, Lucky Ranch, and we would meet with him, and one of his daughters got really interested, and she came to a lot of things that we did, and we had a big thing over at the Irwin Center. Remember the long mourned, celebrated, good riddance? I don't know how people feel about the Irwin Center, but we had a big dinner over there, and Willie and his whole family came to that, and he sang to me. That was one of the high points, as I was trying to talk about what we were doing. But as a result of that, we had students from all across campus. I got, at one point, when I instituted the class, I insisted that it not only be our majors, but that we would open it to other students, because otherwise it was all communication students wanting to talk about relationships. which was good, but I wanted it to be a little bit broader. So we ended up with students from all over campus, which was really fun. And they had to put in a lot of work for this 1 3-credit class. And the center was called that in order that the hours they were earning in these activities could be counted for their professional certification. It's kind of how originally the advertising department had to be a school and had to have a library for years in order to satisfy some, I don't know, some accreditation thing. So we were a center in that we offered all these services as if we were 100 people instead of maybe 30 at a time. And I got from it data, because a lot of people were willing. We had a really elaborate way to make sure I wasn't strong-arming them to let me have the data, but we did that and got a lot of really interesting publications out of that I'm actually still milking and using in my retirement. And we started an undergraduate Bridging Disciplines interdisciplinary certificate program and a graduate portfolio interdisciplinary program. Originally it was jointly with the law school, and then a new dean in the law school decided they didn't need to know how to settle cases. So we took over all of that as well. So that was my little quick story in what we did. Students who went through that, though, one works in the State Department. There are several college professors. There are a couple of people running dispute resolution centers. There's somebody who's running a program in New Mexico in a school district, runs a conflict resolution program there. So the conflict resolution and facilitation program had results that I was very proud of, and had an incredible amount of fun managing and doing. Nobody else has anything like it, which is kind of a clue that it might have been a little bit more work than is sensible to do.
Madeline. I think this is a real testament to the ingenuity and the energy of a single champion behind a given program, and what a wonderful way to celebrate the work that you've done. So thank you very much for that. I'm next in the order here, despite the order that we had previously on the other slide. I have the privilege of being able to talk a little bit about our centers, institutes, and programs. My center is not a product of my individual ingenuity. I was invited to come here after our previous dean, Jay Bernhardt, wanted to launch a center. But before I talk about the Center for Sports Communication and Media, I get the platform, so I guess I get to talk a little bit about it. I wanted to try to identify all the various ways that folks in the Department of Communication Studies are connected to our different centers, institutes, and programs. We will hear more in a moment from Rod Hart about the Annette Strauss Institute for Civic Life, which is currently directed by Mark Strama, a faculty member in our department. I'm not going to talk about that one because I'm going to leave that for Rod. The Center for Health Communication is currently not directed by anybody in our department, but Aaron Donovan has served previously as the associate director, and I know there are a number of faculty who are affiliates of the Center for Health Communication, and so clearly there's a connection there, and that connection is also linked to the history of its founding, because the founding director of the Center for Health Communication was Jay Bernhardt, who before becoming dean was faculty in the Department of Communication Studies. The Center for Media Engagement actually emerged out of the Annette Strauss Institute for Civic Life, which we'll hear about. Talia Stroud is currently the director of CME, and that also includes the Media Ethics Initiative directed by Scott Stroud. So we've got a team of Strouds taking care of business there. The Technology and Information Policy Institute is co-directed by Carrie Stevens, and then, of course, the Center for Sports Communication and Media. I think that accounts for our faculty representation in the formal leadership roles in the centers, institutes, and programs. So please correct me if I've missed anybody, because I would hate to do that. We currently have 15 listed on the website, on the Moody College website. There actually are only 14 that will be moving forward, but I can't reveal anything more than that. None of the things on the screen are implicated in that suggestion. I did want to note some of the initiatives of the other centers, institutes, and programs, the SIPs, as we call them in the meetings that we all love so much among the directors. The Center for Health Communication, for example, just recently launched a scholars program, which Renee Daly is in charge of, and that's an opportunity to help graduate students develop their research profiles in health communication across the different areas in the college. The CME partnership with New York University and Meta yielded an incredible amount of data and recently announced publications that detail the influence of algorithms on our campaigns and elections. I'm guessing that they're running a lot of that now as well for 2024. I'm not sure what the grant project extended to. Media ethics offers a whole bunch. How many? It's 155. I tried to count them, and then I realized they showed up a couple of times. And, yeah, so 155 different case studies, which are great little ways of being able to work these ideas into the classroom. And TIPI, not TIPI, right? TIPI. Multiple publications, but one that I know is near and dear to Carrie's heart, talking about improved communication strategies for helping people manage flood risk. So all kinds of things that are going on. Because I get the opportunity to share a little bit, I just want to give you a sense of what we do in the Center for Sports Communication and Media, and I know some of you got a chance to see us earlier today on the different tours. This is our student space, which is on the 5th floor in CMA. But a few of the things that we are very proud of that I wanted to just share with you, and this is not to suggest that all of the centers, institutes, and programs function in the same way. We all have different missions. We're all organized in different ways. We do a lot of outward programming that's designed to connect to sports media industries. One of the things we do is the annual Dan Jenkins Medal for Excellence in Sports Writing. And as you can see from the list of winners here, both in the Best Annual Sports Writing category and the Lifetime Achievement category, we've had a number of really distinguished writers that we've been able to recognize and in most cases welcome to campus. The Frank DeFord Lecture in Sports Journalism is another one of our signature programs, and again, we've been very lucky to bring people of really the highest caliber in sports media as our guests. And then the annual McGarr Symposium on Sports and Society, which is named for Cappy McGarr, whose name you will see in various capacities in the Moody College of Communication. And Cappy was the person who gave the original gift that launched our first efforts in sports communication. We do a number of different things in the McGarr Symposium. Some are more serious than others, but they're all designed to reflect the role of sports and culture broadly. We do an annual report. This is a research report that is called the Politics and Sports Media Report. We're working currently on the 4th version of this that will come out in January. And one thing I wanted to note here in particular is that this past year's report had the highest number of participants that we have had, 21 different people, 19 of them from the Moody College, but the majority of them are graduate students. But for the first time, we had undergraduate students involved as well, and we have 2 undergrads who are working with the 4th version already. So I'm super excited and proud of that. And we've done a number of other student initiatives that we're excited about. The quality of that image did not translate the way that I had anticipated. That is an image taken from our relationship with the University of Alabama when we did the home and home football series. And we sent students to Tuscaloosa last year. They sent students here 2 years previously in a really nice relationship. But we try to collaborate and partner with as many different organizations as we can inside and outside of the college. And I use that to be illustrative of what I think the SIPs do in general. We're all very interested in interdisciplinarity. We're interested in trying to work across the departments. We do not grant degrees. We try to work to bring people, students, and faculty together across the college as much as we can. So I'm going to leave it at that and then use that as an opportunity to come back to the Annette Strauss Institute for Civic Life. But I also, Rod, wanted you to follow from this discussion because you have the viewpoint not only of launching the Strauss Institute, but also from your vantage point as the dean, having seen a number of these other initiatives launched, and I'd love to hear you reflect on that if you could too.
I've been asked to be the department chair, and I said no. And he asked again, and I said no. And I said it louder the second time. So the dean said, well, look, would you be an interim chair while we think about this? So I said, all right. So make him go away from me. So I was an interim department chair for 2 years. I was just reminded of that, listening to the other chairs. And I didn't want the job, I didn't want to do the job, but I was doing it as best I could. And one day a graduate student walked into my office and complained loudly about various people that had beset her. And I had no idea what was going on. Then she went on, and she got louder and louder, and I probably had some kind of cognitive problem. But anyway, I was totally flabbergasted. I said, I'm sorry, I don't know what you're talking about. And it doesn't seem to pertain to the job that I'm doing. And she just got louder and louder. And finally, I screamed at her to leave my office. Margaret, I mean, they never heard me raise my voice above a conversation before. Anyway, hopefully she got some help. I never know what happened or why she was bothering me. 10 years later, I got a charming note from this person, and how much she appreciated me when she was there, and she was reflecting back about it, and blah, blah, blah. And that she knew that I had a new book, and she would really like to give it to her mother, because it was a topic that her mother, she thought, would like. And would I give her an autographed copy of my book? And I was petrified of this woman coming back into my life. So I was going to do anything she requested. And so she didn't tell me, she didn't actually buy the book. I had to take one of the copies that I had, and I autographed it, and I sent it to her. Another 5 years goes by, and I was invited to give a talk at a university, and it was at a, as many public universities are, kind of a remote university, so it was a small airport that you flew into ultimately. And so I went and gave the talk, and it was I was aware that this person lived in this town, and I was not going to look her up. But anyway, I gave the talk, and I went back, and because it was a small airport, you have to wait forever for planes, and they had a little book-giving bookcase. Give a book, take a book, throw a book in. So it was a long wait. So I started looking through the bookcase. I found my book with my signature in it. Apparently, it had hopefully served its purpose. Her mother had passed on, and I realized later she had written to me and said that her mother had passed on, and she was so happy to have read my book before she passed on. Anyway, that I just thought about that so much. And college professors, we can be such jerks. But I think about that a lot, about my book sitting in that bookcase in that little tiny place. Everything that bad happened to me has happened to me because of John Daly. In about 1980, Well, actually, no, even before that. I had a nice job at Purdue University, and I was happy, and John Daly had a new job at the University of Texas, and he said that I should come down and give a talk, and then he used his wiles to sway his colleagues and the dean to make me a job offer, and I took it. And about 10 years later, I'm talking to him, he's talking to me, and he said, you know, we need to have an honors program in the college. And I said, oh, that's a good idea. He said, why don't you start one? So he's a kind of a hit and run guy. He doesn't actually do anything. He just, so I started the college honors program and ran that for about 9 years. And then we were talking one day, and he was observing that we didn't have any formal research institutes in the college. And I agreed with him, and he said, why don't you start one? And that's where the Annette Strauss Institute started. It was a more complicated story than that, but basically it's just me doing the work that John wants me to do. I was, and the notion at the time, and I was concerned that the young people in my class were increasingly vividly cynical about the political process. And I thought, geez, these kids are 20 years old, and they're sounding like crabby old people. That's not what you're supposed to be when you're 20. You're supposed to have sense of possibility and all the rest. And so I was at a point in my life where I'd done a lot of the things that I'd done, and I could keep doing them and getting a gigantic raise every year, as faculty do, or I could do something new. So I started. I worked around and started the institute, and it was fortuitous at the time. There was we didn't have in the college. We didn't have any organized research units, and so it was the first. And then Rosenthal Alves came not during that same year, and he started the night center. So suddenly we had some things going. Now the problem with my center, and really Rosenthal's too, although he got a little bit of starting money, is their soft money operation. The soft money operation is good that it's got money, but it's bad because it's soft, meaning you don't get, it's not recurring money. It means you have to keep going raising the money. So after a number of years of doing that, we were kind of moving along, and the purpose of the institute was to try to combine research and utilization in some way to try to improve the civic process. And at the time, there were a number of foundations. Foundations are terribly cynical. Well, cynical, I'm not sure. They're cyclical. They do not stay. They get onto certain projects, and then they run them, and they get all their money to them. And then someone gets fired or someone comes in, and then they completely change their, and that's true of many of the foundations. But when I started the Strauss Institute, there was a considerable amount of money for doing work in this kind of civic area. Pew Institute and the Carnegie Foundation and a number of other operations as well. So I got sucked into it, and we did a number of projects. Sharon Jarvis helped me on a number of them. And it was just getting to going, but I knew that we're going to have to raise money as well. And just at about the time that I was about ready to start raising money, I got a call from the provost and said, what do you think about it being a dean? I said, no, I'm not interested at all. And we said, well, come over and talk. And so I went over and talked with him, and I said no, and then he said please, and I said no. He said, well, how about being an interim dean? And I said, oh, all right. So I did it, and I said, but look, I need some help. And so the university threw a little bit of money into the Strauss Institute, so we had a little bit of hard money, and it was only a little bit. And then after a year, we did some searches. The search, they didn't like some of the committee members liked the candidates, but the dean and the provost, the president, didn't like any of them. And at that point, I had to decide what I was going to do. And I knew the college needed, we were in desperate shape. We needed a building. There was literally no place for students to sit. There were no places for students to sit except on the floor. And if you went around and looked at students, they would be sitting outside the faculty member's door, even distinguished doctoral students, sitting on the floor outside the office because there was no place for graduate students or undergraduate students to sit. And I thought, God, we are in such terrible shape. We're overtaxed in every way. And I thought, well, I've been here a while. I'm not a stranger to the state, and we desperately need a building. And so I did the job, and we got a building, and I did some more, and we were able to get the endowment, and finally I was able to go back to the department 11 years later. The thing, mentioned the health, interesting thing about faculty members and department chairs. Department chairs want to make all the decisions, and the ones that they don't work out well, they want to blame on the dean. That's really what their understanding of the dean's job is. But I thought it would be fair maybe for the dean to have a thought. So I said I thought we ought to be hiring some people in health communication, and I had some lines, and all the department chairs declared that a terrible idea because they wanted to determine what would be happening with open lines. And I said, well, I know, but I think I should have something to say about it. And they said, no, you shouldn't, because you're just the guy that we blame. So I said, well, I'm going to open up a couple of lines in health communication. Anybody who's interested, come talk to me. And they all left the room grumbling. And then all three of them came to me privately and said, I would like one of those lines. And so that's how we got started. But we didn't start with the center because at that time we didn't have a medical school, and I was not going to start a center in health communication without a medical school. But lo and behold, that happened, and that really worked out well. Just a little bit about Strauss Institute. I've been, removed from that. We've had a number of very good directors. Very pleased with Mark Strama, and I'm hoping that we'll be able to get some hard money if he's successful on the fundraising circuit. The Institute is funded largely by passing the hat, and we've developed some pretty clever ways of passing the hat. We have an event every spring that does quite well. And the notion I thought when I started the Institute was that we're here in the capital of Texas, and we have no politically oriented unit in the College of Communication and Media, and we're just like a couple of blocks away from the Pink Building, and shouldn't we do that? And so that was the premise, and I think we've developed a number of programs over the time, working with college students, but also working with high school students as well. We've had a couple of major research projects. One, the campaign mapping project, which Sharon Jarvis and I have been doing for a number of years, which has been collecting campaign materials from 1948 to the present and trying to determine patterns. And we both got a number of publications, and we supported a number of graduate students helping on the research. And at the undergraduate level, we've got things like the New Politics Forum, which gets kids understanding what political folks are like and try to understand what kind of jobs there are available. We've got a couple of high school projects that where kids create political materials, and then we have competitions, and other projects that we bring students to campus. Texas Ambassadors, Civic Ambassador Program is primarily oriented toward college kids, where they come to campus and We have a thing that started a long time ago called Speak Up, Speak Out, where high school kids work on a practical project in their local community and try to solve the problem. And then we have a Texas Civics Fair, where kids from all across the state come and make their projects. And sometimes the projects are, we have terrible sewage in this particular part of the city. What are we going to do about that? And what kids go and gather data and present them. We've had a number of cases where the students projects have been presented to city council meetings. And these are high school kids having that kind of impact. So basically what the Institute tries to do is to combine research and outreach, not unlike Madeline's in a lot of ways and others. So anyway, that's it. My tip is to stay humble.
All right. Okay. I think I'm the last person standing between us and the cocktail reception. But Craig Scott, the current chair, and I thought it'd be useful just to share a little bit about some of the things that the department's doing as far as initiatives. But before I get into that briefly, I just want to say I'm always kind of so impressed with some of the things that have come out of indirectly out of the department, but through the people, the faculty in the department. They've just done some amazing things with these various centers and institutes and the different programs. It's where some of the most innovative things that are happening here in the college are happening. And I really think kind of the CMS faculty have been real leaders in making some of that happen. I remember when Rod launched the Strauss Institute and the when it was over on Lake Austin Boulevard, or that first facility. So impressive. Mark's doing a great job with things as it's back kind of here physically in the building now. Madeline's work with the Peace and Conflict Resolution Center, I mean, this has had a real lasting legacy even after she left. I don't know how much you know, but Robert Carroll, one of her TAs, is trying to kind of reinvigorate this because we recognize the need and demand for some of that, and so we're trying to get some of that going again. The storied history of the forensics program is just amazing. Randy was sorry he couldn't be here in person, but there's just so much success, and we're so proud of what our speech and debate folks are doing, and excited to see where Eva and Brendan kind of take that going forward. And then, like I said, the centers and institutes that people are involved in, amazing. One of the things I like about all of these is there's some real kind of, there's a focus, at least part of this focus is on our undergraduate students, and there's real practical value in this. We know in this department, and some of you are here, we are extremely proud of our grad program. I regularly tell people when they say, what are the best things in the department? I say, well, the crown jewel of the department is the grad program. But we have some amazing things that we can do at the undergrad level and some needs there. And so I want to talk real quickly just about some initiatives, 5 C's that we're doing, that we've seized upon kind of in the CMS department when it comes to some initiatives and things we're doing kind of with the undergraduate community. So the first C is for contemporary curriculum. There's 2 C's there. This has really kind of come in 2 forms. I mean, part of it is just trying to add new courses that kind of speak to the issues of the day. That would include things like AI in strategic contexts, risk communication, immigration and communication, social media analytics, environmental communication, to name a few. So we try to keep up with kind of new courses, I think, that speak to things today. Secondly, we've added 2 new tracks to the major starting this past fall. We have existing ones in corporate communication, political communication, and human relations / interpersonal communication, but the new ones are in areas like global and intercultural communication and strategic and risk communication. Matt McGlone has been incredible about helping us design some of the messaging around these as we look to market those going forward. Second C is for our CMS clubs. Both of our clubs are in the process of becoming official UT student organizations, and then we plan to sponsor those going forward. We started these 2 new ones, or reinvigorated them in some ways, in 2021. The first of those is Lambda Pi Eta, which is our CMS Honor Society, which does all sorts of things that are potentially really of value, not just for the recognition you get if you meet the eligibility requirements, but for the networking, for the getting to know one another, the community engagement, and the service that they do. And the advisor for that program is in here, Roselia Mendez Murillo, and we're really grateful for what you do with that student club. Our other student club is our student chapter of the International Association of Business Communicators. Again, kind of a professional student-led organization dedicated to helping the entire kind of UT community that's interested in issues broadly related to business communication. And Robert Carroll is our student advisor or faculty advisor for that student chapter. Our third initiative and our third C is for cutting edge core course. And so I'm specifically talking about our course on professional communication skills, or 306M as we know it. This class is designed to help students develop skills in one-on-one interaction, small group communication, presentation skills primarily. I was looking, and I hadn't realized this till the minors fair yesterday, but this is actually the only course in our curriculum that every major and every minor has to take. So we know it's a hugely important course. Now you may be thinking that doesn't sound very cutting edge necessarily. You know, the presentation skills may sound more like the speech communication and speech days of the department or something. But about 2 years ago, we did a significant update to the course. Primarily, this involved kind of moving away from the old paper book to a digital platform through a company called Top Hat. In the process, we renegotiated the contract so that students pay a little bit less, so the department gets a larger cut of the royalties because we author the chapters in that. And more important, the content was updated to include new and updated chapters related to technology, diverse audiences, ethics, and more. And plus the content, because it's digital, it affords greater interactivity and customization for students. So I want to specifically thank John Daly and Nathaniel Repay for the enormous amount of work that they did in help bringing this important skill-based course into the digital age. So we're proud of that initiative as well. Our fourth C is our computer-mediated communication channel. So in the past few years, we've really tried to kind of up our game in terms of how we reach out to and communicate with our undergraduates. One of those ways is by sending out something we call our Communication Studies Major Alert. It's a once a semester newsletter that's just designed to kind of update our undergraduates about various things. I love the name Major Alert. Some of the people in the college have said, "Oh, I don't think you can say that. That's going to stress students out," because they think there's an alert about the major ending or something. Whatever. Anyway, we send out our Major Alert, and we do a lot of things in there. One of the things that was in there was kind of fun. We do a on the Instagram story, there's an alert in the Major Alert where we did a faculty riddle. And I'll just tell you the riddle because I assume some of you aren't following us on Instagram. So here was the riddle. This CMS faculty member studies families and secrets, but makes no secret that someone in her family is also on CMS faculty. You would never think of her as a moody person, but she is now the top moody person. Who is this? Now, you probably know, but you're not eligible for the $50 gift card that the undergraduates are competing for. So, in addition to kind of that Major Alert, we've really kind of focused a lot on our Instagram as a way to reach undergraduates. We went from basically 0 a few years ago to over 1,000 followers now. So, we're not exactly trending, but we're doing okay on that. We've added profiles of undergraduates to our websites thanks to the help of our social media interns and work studies. And finally, let me mention that this effort around the anniversary was actually our first one to do some digital outreach to folks, and we hope to do more of that kind of going forward. Again, we sent out 9,000 emails. About 2,000 of them came back as bad, but trying to do more of this sort of outreach. And the final C I want to bring up is our kind of new Communication Studies Week. So this is one of our biggest events that we do each year. It's a spring event where we try to focus on some things for our undergraduate community, focused on careers, clubs, classes, and community building. A lot of kind of practical things that go around with this. We invite alumni back for various things. Last spring's event included alumni coming back to give career advice, faculty guest DJs at our community day, and our first ever CMS trivia night. So trying to do some things here. Our students sometimes say they feel like the media majors get a lot more attention because they've got Matthew McConaughey and some other things like that. So we're trying to do some things to make sure our communication studies students know just how valued they are and some of the amazing work that they're doing. So those are some of our initiatives and things that we're doing here kind of in the department that we hope will kind of make a difference kind of going forward. And I hope we can kind of continue to do these things as long as they're beneficial.